Welcome back, everybody. We've got House members Harold Ford, Marsha Blackburn rejoining us. Our excellent panel, Pete Beinart, Ann Coulter, and Larry Sabato. Larry Sabato, I can't put it any clearer than this. Will Mr. Ford win in Tennessee?
Oh, you really put me on the spot with him here. Look,
Larry,
Mayor
I'm watching
Bob
you, man,
Corker, the Republican. Yeah, I know that. I got to be careful what I say. Mayor Bob Corker, the Republican, is the favorite to win that seat. But, and I would say this if Harold Ford weren't on the program, as your viewer just saw, he's about as impressive a Democrat as you find, and I think he has a reasonable shot at an upset in a year when the Democratic winds are blowing, and they're blowing at his back, and so he might be the critical sixth seat that gives Democrats control of the U.S. Senate.
Not to detract, and I mean this very seriously and personally, not to detract one iota from my brilliant friend Marsha Blackburn, brilliant and dedicated friend, but the reality is Mr. Ford is a very special candidate. Ann Coulter, I want you to weigh in on the Harold Ford race.
You're putting us all on the spot.
Yes.
And, it's especially bad for me because you know how I hate saying anything kind about a Democrat. Harold Ford is one of my favorite Democrats, but the problem is he belongs to the Democratic Party. And if he does not, as reasonable as he sounds today, and you do, Representative, if he does not toe the lunatic anti-war high tax line, he'll end up being primaried like Joe Lieberman.
Well, that's a good point. Peter Beinart, I want to get you to weigh in on this Harold Ford race. And what did Ann just say? The lunatic fringe, the anti-war. I think post-Lieberman, Peter, and Lieberman is your quintessential liberal hawk, for heaven's sakes, Dems are going to go left on the war, immediate pullout and withdrawal, which is not going to solve any of the numerous problems I've already articulated on Iraq. And then the issue is high taxes and probably loose spending as well. Go ahead, Pete.
No, but where Ann is wrong is that the Democratic Party has actually showed enormous pragmatism in supporting candidates in red states who are to the right of the National Democratic Party. Representative Ford is a classic example, the Democratic candidate in Montana, the Democratic candidate in Missouri. The Democratic Party has been in Pennsylvania, as you know, the Democrats are nominating an anti-abortion candidate to go up against Santorum. The Democratic Party, there is a kind of purism that plays out in blue states like Connecticut, where people figure, well, it's a blue state so we can go as far left as we want. But in those red states, the party has nominated candidates who appeal to those states, and it's one of the reasons the Democrats have a really decent chance of winning the Senate.
Ann Coulter, I want to bring you back, and I want to let Marsha Blackburn weigh in because she's been very patient here on this Harold Ford love fest. What can I say? The guy's a class act. But Ann Coulter, a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House will produce a Democratic immigration bill. Now, as much as Larry Sabato and I worship at the shrine of Grover Cleveland, who vetoed more bills than any president in the United States before or since, the reality is Bush may not veto an immigration bill. What is your take on a Democratic immigration bill?
I'm against it. But by the way, you were talking in the earlier segment about whether the Democrats will raise taxes. It's a frivolous question. Of course they will raise taxes. But now that Bush has taken out that veto pen, maybe we will get that vetoed. And by the way, what Peter just said is that Democrats are, openly trying to fake out the American people. They run people like Daschle and who, go back to the home states and pretend to be standing with Bush and supporting the war on terror and supporting conservative judges. And then as soon as they get to Washington, they vote along with Nancy Pelosi and Teddy Kennedy.
Well, if Lieberman
that's the problem with Harold Ford's party.
If Lieberman is any benchmark, I mean, all the left is coming out for Lieberman. I know President Clinton campaigned up there for him, but you just see it. Heck, I just saw Al Sharpton go up there, which ought to be the kiss of death, but who the heck knows? I've never seen such an assault on a guy who's been a loyal party member who just happens to have a little patriotism on the war. I mean, it's an extraordinary thing, Peter Beinart. The whole party seems like it's against Lieberman right now.
Well, look, I have a lot of admiration and respect for Joe Lieberman. I don't think the question is patriotism. I don't think Ned Lamont or his supporters and the blogosphere,
all right,
whatever,
call
have
it
any,
national
have any
security.
less- have
I
any
take
less-
it back.
have
I
any less-
take the word
have
patriotism
any
back.
less patriotism.
I call it national security and foresight in the terror war. I take patriotism back.
I think that if people had a little more historical perspective, they remember that Joe Lieberman was the one blue state Democrat who supported the Gulf War. He was dead right. He was a hero on Bosnia, a hero on Kosovo. I think Joe Lieberman, even if you disagree with him on the war in Iraq, I think has done a lot of good for his party, a lot of things that are very valuable. I think it'll be sad if he loses.
All right, Marsha Blackburn, you've been very patient. There's
Yes,
a lot on
Larry.
the table here. It's kind of a Harold Ford love fest. Weigh in again, please, if you would.
Well, in Tennessee, I think securing the border, national security, it's a security agenda. Lowering your taxes, getting government spending under control. And the people in Tennessee want to see those things addressed. They expect leadership that is going to address those. And Harold Ford has served the Democrat Party well. He has served the 9th District in Tennessee, congressional district well. But I don't think this one's going to be his race to win.
Ms. Blackburn, what might a Democratic immigration bill, let us assume for the moment, however unlikely you believe this scenario to be, that they do.
Yeah.
The Larry Sabato Democratic wave comes true, and I know he's hedging a little bit, but that's the direction of his thinking. What would a Democratic immigration bill look like in your view?
Well, and let me say this, Larry. I think that we have to realize we all know this is going to be a tough election. And I, for one, am not taking anything for granted. And if you were to talk about what kind of proposals the Democrats would bring forward, look at what they've offered. You can look at proposals for pathways to citizenship, for amnesty, for additional benefits. Look at the Reid-Kennedy bill. That is the bill that ended up coming through the Senate. I think that that is what they would offer. The American people have clearly rejected that. They have clearly rejected it. What they want is secure the border first, because what we have is a situation where every town has become a border town, every town has become a border state, and people want to see this issue resolved. They don't want to talk about anything else until we have secured the border and have a plan.
Mr. Ford, I'm going to give you the last word quickly. Your response to Ms. Blackburn on immigration.
She makes my case. I voted for the toughest bill, and the Republicans hadn't been able to get anything done. I don't mean to be partisan, but I think my politics fits right with Tennessee's politics, and I appreciate Ms. Blackburn for laying out what the issues are, and I'm going to ask her for her vote this evening on the show. If you want to solve these problems, you ought to give me a chance to go to the Senate, because I promise you I'd be a part of the winning group.
Can I get a quick straw poll, please? Just up or down, yes or no, Larry Sabato, for Senator Ford, yes or no?
Sabato, I'm
Oh,
listening.
sure, he's on the program, yes.
Ann Coulter, Senator
Yes.
Ford. Ann Coulter, Senator Ford, yes or no?
No, become a Republican.
All right, Peter Beinhardt, Senator Ford, yes or no?
Yes, and that'll be the last seat they need to take the Senate.
All right, very interesting. I thank all of you for a wonderful bunch of segments.
Thank you, Larry.
I'm not in politics, but I'll say, as an American, somewheres, sometime in the U.S. Senate, there's got to be a place for someone like Harold Ford. Anyway, coming up, are you sure the Fed isn't going to hike interest rates? I don't know. It may be a case of counting your chickens before they're hatched. We'll have a forecast on that and the stock market and what to do with your money just ahead. Kudlow and Company, please stay with us.